Hey everybody, it's Allie and welcome to our Y&R chat for Sunday, June 21st, 2015. I think that's the right date. So let's start out with the big story of the week. Lily's leopard jumpsuit. I don't know, was it leopard? Was it Dalmatian print? I don't know what it was, but it was a bold choice. That's gotta be the talk of the community this week, right? For me, it was like the most compelling thing about the show this week. I couldn't keep my eyes off of her. I mean, what was it? A jumpsuit, a pantsuit? It had like this puffy MC Hammer quality to it. I don't know. I loved it. For some reason, I loved it. I was like, well, that's different, girl. For some reason, it just delighted me. So, big burning question of the Y&R chat community. What did you think of Lily's jumpsuit? Leave me a comment. Let me know about that right away. Actually, I think what I'm going to do is build up to the big stories of the week. And talk a little bit first about Adam and Billy and Chelsea, and also how it kind of connects in with Jack's big plan to frame Victor for embezzlement. Gabe he's sort of inserted himself into the Abbott family, and everybody's kind of wondering why. Billy and Chelsea start to question him about why he's so gung-ho on the plan. Why are you willing to risk going to jail? I mean, at the end of the day, what they're doing to set Victor up is so completely illegal. There's a huge amount of risk for everyone involved. What's in it for you, Gabe? And by the way, why are you so set on revenge on Victor Newman, this guy who, you know, for everything we know, you don't have that much of a connection to? And in order to skirt around what the actual truth is, Adam decides to drop the secondary lie, a secondary bomb about Gabe's identity, and reveals my father is not Gabe, or is not Harrison Bingham. Is that what it was? Harrison Bingham. My father is Jack Abbott. I mean, jaws dropped. Chelsea's looking at him like, I don't even know you. Billy and Ashley's head nearly spun around. All of a sudden, this guy is a family member. Or I guess I should start calling them Uncle Billy and Aunt Ashley. I really got a kick out of that. I thought it was funny. And Adam is just loving it. He's sitting back, you know, feeling like he threw the dogs off of the scent of his identity so cleverly, and he's just calling them Uncle Billy and Aunt Ashley just to toy with them. He enjoyed every single moment of it, except for the fact that he's blowing it with Chelsea. Every time he tells a new lie, he's blowing it with her even more. I mean, to Chelsea, it's just one more lie upon another lie. I mean, he was lying to her last week, he's lying to her this week, and that's not even the big lie. She doesn't even know about any of that, and she does confront him. I kind of feel like Chelsea's starting to get the impression maybe Gabe is not all sugar sweet, sensitive, romantic bad boy that she thinks he is. She's starting to realize that she is getting into the relationship with Adam all over again. I mean, they're obviously, we know, the same person, and I think it's starting to click with her. She got really mad at him, kicked him out. Of course, she forgave him later in the week, but if her reaction was any indication, over this little paternity lie, him just choosing not to tell her when he found out about that Jack was his father. Of course, he writes it off saying, well, I just found out. But if she reacts that way over this little paternity lie, how is she going to feel when she finds out about this total identity lie? if Adam thinks that Chelsea's just going to fall into his arms when she finds out, he's completely wrong. I think that, in fact, at the end of the day, Chelsea and Adam might not even end up together at the end of this. Plus, there's this whole mess of Marco's master plan that he's dragging everyone else into. Everybody who is involved in this setup against Victor is at risk of going to jail, is at risk of losing everything that they have. At the beginning of the week, Jack in quotes, Marco, reveals his master plan to Ashley. Reveals that his merger with Newman Enterprises was always a backdoor plan. He was always planning to combine the two companies, set Victor up while his guard is down, and then set Victor up and walk away with both companies at the end of it, which is, it really is brilliant. It's a brilliant storyline twist, I think. I think it's a kind of a brilliant business revenge soap opera move. I'm completely into it. I'm surprised Victor didn't think of it first. I mean, the best Victor could come up with was this whack job Kelly kidnapping Jack and taking him off to a remote island and then replacing Jack with a Peruvian identical twin. Not nearly as brilliant. I'll give you creative for your master plan, Victor, but Marco, his master plan is a little bit better in my opinion. Now, Ashley is learning the truth for the first time. I'm surprised it didn't explode her brain, considering she, just had brain surgery last week. But she's learning the truth from Jack, that the whole thing was a setup, and she's known all along that something wasn't right, but he has insisted the entire time that no, everything's great with Victor, and now he's ready to make his move, he's ready to reveal himself, and Ashley is so betrayed. I feel bad for her. I feel bad for Phyllis. I feel bad for everyone who gave Jack the benefit of the doubt, and now it's all turning on them, and they're getting wrapped up in his plan to overthrow Victor. And Ashley is, honestly, Ashley and Chelsea are the only two people, the women are the only two people who are taking a look at this big master plan of Jack / Marco's and realizing that it's kind of BS. It's risky, and it's unnecessarily risky. At the end of the day, it's not even something that Jack Abbott would do. I think that Jack is someone who obviously wants revenge on Victor, but he's also someone who wants to protect his family. It's the one thing that Victor and Jack have in common. I can't see the real Jack Abbott putting every single person in his family at risk in order to get back at Victor. It's so elaborate. And at the end of the day, again, what we're seeing is Marco setting everyone up. He doesn't give a crap about any of the people in this story, in this town. The only person he cares about is his long-lost love, Marissa. But as far as Ashley goes, I think as far as Phyllis goes, I think as far as Kyle goes, he doesn't care whether they come out of this alive or free. I don't think it matters to him whatsoever. So he's setting all of them up to take the fall, and he's gonna reap the spoils of it. Now, the interesting thing is, well, I mean, there's multiple interesting things. I like Kyle's role in this, actually, and surprisingly for me, I really enjoyed Kyle and Summer's part of this story. They're two characters that I've had a hard time really connecting with, and Y&R did a good job at the beginning of the week of really focusing on them. They are the Romeo and Juliet of the story at right now. She is the Newman, he is the Abbott. At this point in the story, both the Abbotts and the Newmans have figured out that the other side is getting ready to make a move, and we're seeing Victoria and Victor versus Jack and Billy and that whole clan, and Kyle and Summer are the ones stuck right in the middle. And Kyle is in a place where he's just started this relationship with Summer. He wants her bad. He's screwed it up before. He doesn't want to screw it up again. Summer is just coming out of a really screwed up relationship situation, shall we say. She's what, 21, she's in her early 20s. She's already a widow. And not only that, but Austin was cheating on her. She doesn't want to be a victim of the lies. Kyle doesn't want to be a victim of the lies. So knowing that something is going up, that the Abbotts are getting ready to make a move, Summer starts to pressure Kyle to tell her what's going on. And although he doesn't really tell her what's going on, he gives her an indication that all is not the way it seems. Something is beginning to become rotten in Denmark. And so Summer decides on her own she feels a loyalty to her family, so she goes directly to Victor and tells him that something is up. Now meanwhile, Victoria and Victor are trying on their own to figure out what it is the Abbotts are up to. Victoria is diligently working the Billy angle at the same time that Summer's coming to them, and there was this really beautiful moment where Summer's trying to tell Victor that something is up, but she can't really. She's trying to skirt the line. She's trying to tell him something, give him an indicator without really betraying Kyle's confidence. And just a beautiful moment where Victoria's listening to all of this. Summer leaves, and Victoria remarks to her father that Summer's in a position where she's still young enough to think that she can stay loyal to Kyle and stay loyal to her family at the same time. Great statement, great writing. It showed that Summer and Victoria are actually in a similar situation. I really liked that moment, and it shows that Victoria has become hardened against the Romeo and Juliet story, the Abbotts versus the Newmans, and she has kind of realized that you have to choose a side at a certain point, and if that means losing the relationship in this instance, then she's gonna do it. And I'm looking forward to in the future spending a little bit more time on that with Victoria and Billy, and we've seen it throughout the week where both Billy and Victoria are at a standoff. They both know that the other one knows something is up, and yet at the same time it's clear that they both want to be back in a relationship. They would love to start new, but there is this realization that it's always going to be the Montagues versus the Capulets. It's never going to be an ideal universe where love conquers all, and it's a lesson that Victoria has had to learn over and over again in her life, and will probably continue to have to learn in the future. And after she mentioned that to Victor, where she said, you know, they're still both young enough to think they can stay loyal to each other and to the family at the same time, Victor looked at her and he said, "You are your father's daughter." He rewards that line of thinking, which is really sad. I'm sure it's in some ways too exactly what Victoria longed to hear. If she does have to sacrifice her relationship with Billy, she wants to get that pat on the head from Victor. So very sad, I thought anyway, and I think that'll be interesting to see in the future too. Now, just as Summer is going to Victor, Kyle is realizing that he's said too much and probably blown his father's plan. So Kyle goes to who he thinks is his father, and he wants to tell him that, you know, just kind of a heads up, maybe I spilled a little bit of the beans to Summer. And Jack, fake Jack, Marco, is so mad at Kyle over this notion that, I mean, he's practically drooling. I swear, I'm watching the show in HD now, and I could swear I saw like a drool and a spit come out of his mouth. He says, "Are you kidding me? You ruined my plans? All of my plans over a girl?" which also speaks to Marco's state of mind. What we know from his backstory is that he had a choice to make back in the day when it came to Marissa. It was sort of a choose business over the woman, and he chose the business. He didn't choose love. And so it kind of gave a little bit of Marco's state of mind, and he's so furious with Kyle that he smacks him upside the head twice. It was such a weird scene. I was just floored watching it, because number one, Jack would never do that. Jack would never hit Kyle. Number two, it was a little lame. I'm not gonna lie. I think whoever maybe normally coordinates their stage acting, stage fighting might have been on vacation, because it didn't look real. I don't know if you guys noticed that or not, but it almost seemed like Peter Bergman didn't really want to do that, because hitting your kid is serious, and I just kind of wonder if Peter Bergman had some reservations about it, because it almost seemed like he wasn't giving it his all. It was the tiniest little, it didn't seem like he committed to it. I guess at the end of the day, it didn't seem like Peter Bergman was committed to those slaps. So they seemed a little off. It could have been done better, but I like that. I guess I like that that it happened, because what it's doing, what that little smack was intended to be, was an indicator of who Marco is and how he gets things done. We've now established, even at the minor level, violence. Marco is someone who is not afraid to use violence to get what he wants. And we're also seeing now, as the week progressed, implications that Marco was the one who killed Austin and Courtney. And I think that mostly that smack was done to sort of indicate that. And especially since Kyle's one of the younger kids, I think Y&R wanted to show us that it's something that Marco would 100% plausibly do. There was a scene, I guess it was between Victor and Marco, where Victor again pushes Marco, says, you're the one that killed those kids, aren't you? And Marco at first denies it, but then as the scene goes on, he starts to acknowledge that he was the one that killed the kids. He said something like they were too close to finding out that he wasn't really Jack Abbott. I guess, whatever. I don't care. I mean, if Y&R can just wrap it up and let Marco have killed Courtney and Austin, that is fine with me, just so long as it's done. In that scene between Victor and Jack, we also saw this other new element of violence. Victor and Marco are going back and forth. It's clearly a standoff moment. I think Victor has realized within the past couple of weeks that who he's dealing with is not some pliable piece of putty. Marco is a formidable enemy, and he is willing to do things that Victor wouldn't necessarily be willing to do. Victor, for all his ruthlessness, has never been a I'm gonna shoot ya kind of guy. He's not a mobster, not yet anyway. But Marco is someone who is not afraid of using brass tactics, and Victor's realizing that this guy is actually dangerous, and they're kind of doing their standoff of, Jack saying, well, I'll just tell everybody that you were in on it. If everybody finds out what you've done, you're the one that initiated all of this. You're the one, Victor, who had Jack kidnapped. You're the one, by that crazy lady, you're the one that trained me. You got me out of that Peruvian prison. You trained me to become John Abbott Jr., and anything else that happened as a result of that is ultimately gonna be traced back to you. So that's Marco's side of the threat. Victor's got his side of the threat, which is frankly far weaker, saying, I'm just gonna freeze your bank accounts and tell the police, tell the Peruvian police where you are, which I think Marco could probably easily evade. And it gets so heated that Victor, who is now trying to research who Marco Antonelli, I think was his last name, really is. He's kind of gone back into the newspaper articles about the incident with Marissa and just trying to find some kind of leverage against Marco, and he has sensed that Marissa is it. Marissa is his soft spot, but from all indicators, it appears that she's dead. I don't know if Victor knows more than he's letting on about that, but Victor's been kind of researching Marco and hoping to find some leverage over him. He goes into his top desk drawer, I assumed, to get the papers and to kind of use it as a blackmail or something against Marco, and he pulls open the desk drawer. We see a shot of it empty, and Marco stands up and says, "Are you looking for the 9mm that you keep in your top desk drawer? Because guess what, it's right here." And he pulls it out of his jacket, and all of a sudden it's escalated. The violence has escalated to a level I wasn't even expecting. I'm shocked. I'm like, what? We're here now? And Victor tells him, "You don't have the guts." And I mean, in a great scene, a well acted scene between the two rivals, Peter Bergman, Marco takes the gun and just points it right at Victor's face and says, "Are you sure about that? Are you sure I don't have the guts?" It was a great moment, and I think that was the cliffhanger of maybe Wednesday's show, maybe Thursday's show, I'm not sure, but it had me. I was like, ooh, that rivalry has just been kicked up a notch. There's a reason why it's been one of the longest running rivalries on the show, Victor Newman versus Jack Abbott, because it's good, because both actors are good and they play off of each other so well. And I was just absolutely shocked by the visual image of Jack pointing a gun at Victor, because for as bad as the rivalry's been, it's never been that. And I know that it's not technically Jack Abbott or whatever, but I mean, just seeing him point that gun, I was like, what am I watching? I can't even believe this is happening. Victor challenges him and says, "Go ahead, pull the trigger. It's not loaded." And he does. Again, we're indicating that Marco is willing. No, I mean, Marco didn't know whether there was bullets in the gun. Victor could have been bluffing. But he pulled the trigger anyway. Luckily, it was unloaded. He didn't leave Victor dead in his office. Wouldn't be the first time. Oh, and just on a side note, it's been forever since we've even seen Victor behind his desk. I enjoyed that. Thank you, YNR. I want to see Victor Newman behind his damn desk in that Romanesque, dark forest green office more often. So thank you. It was such a shocking moment. Couldn't believe it. I think it was Phyllis that ended up walking in on the two guys. The word about Gabriel's paternity has started to get out. It started to make its way through Genoa City, and Phyllis has found out about it. And not to mention that earlier in the week, she caught Marco taking a look at it, getting a text message about the status of that boat that exploded, and learning that Marissa was killed in the explosion. And so Phyllis is starting to catch on. Not only is she noticing that Jack, or who she thinks is Jack, is keeping secrets about those text messages, but then to learn from Ashley that he actually has another son out there. And I don't think Phyllis was at all mad about the fact that he happened to have a son. Phyllis was mad about the fact that he kept it from her, that he didn't feel like he could share it. It's the first times, it seems, strangely, that Phyllis is actually putting two and two together and realizing that something is off about this man. This is not the same man, and it's not. She walks in on Victor and Jack. She kind of breaks up their little argument. I mean, did you see how close those two guys were? I mean, as soon as she walked in the door, they had to peel back away, but it was like the closest of standoffs. It was excellent. I, again, can't say it enough. I enjoyed Peter Bergman and Eric Braeden in that scene. They were as good as ever. So thank you, YNR, for that. But Phyllis comes in, breaks it up, and confronts Jack about the fact that he has this new son that he never told her about. And of course, Marco's able to skirt his way out of that, but it's just one lie right after another, right down to the fact that Phyllis goes to embrace him and notices that he's got a gun on him. him. It was like a real, is that a gun in your pocket, or are you just happy to see me kind of moment. I mean, how many more lies can there be before Phyllis figures it out? And I'm wondering if Phyllis is going to end up being the one who really is key in bringing down Marco, revealing his identity. I kind of hope so. She is tipped off about a lot of things, including, I mean, she knows now. He came up with a story about Marissa. He called her Manuela or something. I think she's trying to evade or tell. I think it's kind of interesting too. It's like Marco leaves kernels of truth within his lies, and he's explaining the fact that Manuela was a woman he loved long ago when he was doing some overseas business trip for Jabot, and that she died in that explosion. You know, he tells her a kernel of truth along with the lie, and I think it's enough to get Phyllis to do some additional research, and I'm kind of hoping she's the one that ends up blowing this all up. Now, over in, for the first time, we saw the post-explosion ship. Real Jack and Marissa have survived the explosion. They have found a house that was, I don't know, not boarded up or something. It's got beautiful bedding, beautiful side table. It's a nicely decorated house that they were able to find. They're both bloody, bruised, dirty. The ordeal that Jack has been through, he probably smells so bad. And the first thing he does is rips off, there's like sheets covering everything in this room, and he rips off the sheets, throws back the sheet that's covering the bed to reveal the beautiful clean bedding, and then he just tosses this disgusting body onto it. I don't know why that caught me, but I'm like, dude, can you sleep on the sheet, or like sleep on top of the sheet? You do not need to crawl up on top of the nice clean bedding of this house just to get your nastiness on it. The things I notice are just ridiculous sometimes. But anyway, they're safe, they're alive. Marissa is taking care of him. We've had a couple of instances where she's establishing trust with him, that she's willing to help him, that she's on his side more than anything else. She's able to locate a phone. She brings it back to Jack, and Jack is convincing her to call Jabot. They will be the ones to help. He thinks at this point they think he's dead, so he doesn't know the full scope of what's going on, and I'm so looking forward to next week, because he convinces Marissa to call Jabot, and who she gets is Marco, and she realizes immediately that's Marco's voice. They have this moment, I mean, the phone's getting ready to go dead, and they're spending time saying that they love each other, but she realizes that something is up, that what's happening here is a scam of Marco's. She loves him, but she's been burned by him, and I'm hoping that she doesn't just fall back in love with him. I'd like to see Marissa be an integral part of bringing Marco down, because she realizes that whatever scam he's got going on, that having Jack Abbott back in the picture would not be good for him. So she lies to Marco, tells him that Jack is definitely dead, and asks for him to wire money so that they can get back home. And I am especially looking forward to next week, because Jack is starting to figure out that his family doesn't think he's dead. His family thinks he's very well alive and walking around, and that this guy has usurped his life. It's only going to be a matter of time before the real Jack Abbott realizes, who's behind it all. In another non-Jack Abbott-esque move, Marco has asked Kyle to be basically a carrier pigeon and make a trip down to the Caribbean to make sure that the wire transfer that they're using to set Victor up, like they're all trying to make it look like Victor's using Jabot to embezzle money to the Caribbean, and Marco uses Kyle to be the mule basically, and go down to the Caribbean, make sure personally that the wire transfer happened. He's probably caught on camera cameras on every airport he took, security footage everywhere. Kyle he's walked into danger. I mean, if anybody's going to go down for any of this, it's probably going to end up being Kyle. Kyle comes back to Genoa City. He's mad at his dad. I mean, the whole instance where his dad smacked him, and now he's having to do his dirty work and compromise his own morals to try to help his father, then to walk back into Genoa City and find out that he's got a brother, that Gabe is actually his half-brother. Kyle is done. He is not having it, but not before he goes to Paul and tells Paul all about the final stage of the plan, that it was Victor who's embezzling money, and he gives all of the evidence that they've fakely collected to Paul so that Paul can arrest Victor. Now, Victor is sitting in the athletic club enjoying his Father's Day celebration with his children, which is so weird. There was just this little moment where Nick says, "Happy Father's Day," and Victor's like, "Huh?" And Nick says, "Oh, I was just trying to tell you Happy Father's Day." And Victor said something like, "Well, thank you, that's very kind of you." I mean, he's so not even fatherly. He's a robot. If you said Happy Father's Day, Dad, and your dad said, "Thank you, that's very kind of you," how would you feel? Like, thanks, Robo Dad. But anyway, Victor is having brunch or whatever with the whole family. He is not accepting of gifts. He is wanting to give gifts. He announces that he wants to, he's arranged for a private jet and a villa in Hawaii large enough to hold all of them to be set up so that he can take them all on one big family vacation, which is really way more like a keeping my family safe-cation. He realizes Marco's a threat, and that means that his family is not safe. So Victor is doing his very best to get them out of the picture. Nikki's the only one who realizes it. Victor doesn't do anything just to be a nice guy. No, he's got an agenda. She starts to ask him about it and say, what's this vacation to Hawaii really all about? Just as Paul marches into the athletic club and announces that Victor Newman is under arrest for embezzlement. Marco could barely keep a straight face during that scene. There's a look between Victor and Marco where Victor realizes fully he's been set up. He now understands what it was that the Abbotts were tooling away about behind closed doors. It's not gonna be pretty next week. I don't know how long Victor's gonna be in jail for, but it probably will be like one episode if I know the show lately. So there you have it. Another Newman family vacation that will never happen. I really don't even think I could be more sad about the fact that Avery is leaving the show, and I don't think that I'm the only one. I did a little bit of online looking this week, and I saw that I think early in the week it was Jessica Collins' last day on the set, and there was a lot of pictures and tweets and stuff about her last day, and they had a celebration, and I thought it was really interesting that on her last day, Jessica Collins kind of threw a little bit of a party for herself, I suppose, and she hired a food truck to come and serve awesome food to all of her Y&R friends, and she even in her tweets had said, "This has been, my favorite job. This has been the best, time of my life playing Avery." Like, she really loved this role. It's clear that she really loved the people that she was working with enough to like have a party and want to celebrate that time. And I guess I didn't know this throughout, but apparently Jessica Collins is a food blogger, or she is actually really into cooking and into food. And it's something I didn't even pick up on her or connect to reality when Avery had her cooking show and all of that. But then I guess the whole cast went out for drinks afterwards, and they had drinks that were Avery themed, and I just thought, wow, that is so classy and so genuine, and she just seems like such a nice person, and it's so unfortunate that she has to leave this show now. I haven't heard anybody calling for, oh, get rid of Avery. She was kind of a pillar of the show within the last couple of years, and I just feel really sad that whatever went down with her had to go down. And I don't know, my instinct says it was probably something on the corporate end. There's nothing about Jessica Collins to me that seems vicious or vindictive or like she had any malice in her heart. Whereas I feel like I'm seeing a lot of negativity out of, the behind the scenes Y&R people. And I'm bummed out. And it's sort of another thing that I saw. I just so happened to look at Jessica's Twitter account, and she had retweeted something that Katie McLean, who played Kelly, recently let go from the show, had said, which was, it's too bad that this wonderful actress wasn't appreciated by the young and the restless. So it's clear that whatever happened between Katie McLean and Y&R went down with a real negative vibe, and so that kind of tells me that something behind the scenes is rotten, and it bums me out that Jessica Collins also had to be a victim of that, and that the character of Avery is going down in this way, and I don't even get the impression that they're leaving it open very much. I think that Avery's gonna meet an untimely death, and it's sad, and I really just want to give a shout out to Jessica Collins, who I'm sure does not watch, has no idea who the hell I am, but I just want to say that I think that to go out on a positive note when something's clearly negative behind the scenes, it's classy, and I am gonna miss her. I'm gonna be annoyed if the Avery thing goes down in a way that's inconsistent with her character or that's disrespectful to her character, because not every woman on the show has to be a villainess. Not every woman on the show has to just be a man-eater or anything. I think that I think that Avery's character did a good job of representing a professional woman who tries to do the right thing and has an overall positive attitude. And I don't know. I think that the show, even though I didn't necessarily connect with her right off the bat, I thought that her character added a good element to the show. And I get the impression that something negative is gonna happen, really, really negative. There was this scene this week, and not even to mention that Y&R, I talked a little bit about it with the Jack and Marco and Victor gun situation and the element of violence that's now been introduced into the show. And it's something that I feel maybe hasn't been there in the past as prominently as it is now. Doesn't it feel like Y&R's a lot more violent lately? Every week somebody's getting smacked, or there's blood dripping on the floor, and we had these murders, and Austin and Courtney being murdered. It is very violent right now, and they've also created this heightened sense out of nowhere of violence between Avery and Joe. And I said it last week, I actually do believe this story. I believe that Joe could have been someone who would have been violent in the past. We know that he has issues with his own father through his childhood, and that's something that he saw as a child, and it's entirely possible that those bad behaviors are something that he would have enacted out on Avery. And even if it is once, it's not okay. But now, all of a sudden, it seems like Joe's being portrayed as this crazy stalker woman beater. That's the part that feels jerky to me. Like, whoa, okay, I guess it just feels out of nowhere. And the fact that Avery is absolutely, deathly, mortally terrified of him is a weird and unsettling element of violence for me that I'm not particularly enjoying. Everybody's got a restraining order against each other. It's so stupid. But yeah, Joe comes to the coffee house, sees Avery there, who is having a talk with Michael, kind of sharing her experience and talking about what happened last week and why she wanted to run. And then there becomes this confrontation between Avery and Joe, where Joe seems to indicate that he knows something about Avery that nobody else knows. Isn't it odd that Y&R said they repeated it, so we know it's intentional. He said it first, and then Avery had a flashback later of him saying, isn't it interesting how you end up getting to know someone, you know everything about them, and he really focused on those words. So that's telling me that there's some sort of part of Avery's character that Y&R's just going to drop onto us here at the 11th hour, and we're just gonna have to deal with it, and it's probably going to be related to her untimely end. I'm not saying I think that Avery's necessarily going to die. It's a possibility, but something bad I think is gonna happen to her, and it's gonna cause her to leave the show, and it is disappointing. The other thing that I appreciated this week and kind of wish we would have seen more of was the Michael and Avery relationship. Michael sat down with Avery and had a long conversation with her about what she was feeling and what she had been through. And I love Christian LeBlanc. I miss the Michael that was created through years and years and years, like where he was the stable, smart one, and he was intelligent and witty and supportive, and I miss that Michael. We've got this weird, sadistic, twisted Michael, and I'll talk about that more later, but the way he was with Avery in that scene was so right on. I missed that part of him, and I appreciated the friendship between Michael and Avery. I think that Michael is going to end up being a good friend all the way to the end with Avery, because in fact I also saw on Twitter that she had, I think, wrapped up her final scenes, and Christian LeBlanc was somehow involved. So whatever happens to Avery, I mean, I suppose that means she probably didn't die. I don't know, but however she needs to leave town, I kind of think Michael's going to be the one who will be there with her throughout her journey, and certainly probably Dylan too. I tell you, I'm not feeling the whole apartment horror story. She goes home and all of a sudden there's a big storm and her lights go out and she thinks she sees somebody on the balcony and she hears noises, and all of a sudden it's Scream, it's a horror story. She calls the only person that she can think to call, Dylan, rather than calling the police. It's Captain America to the rescue, which I loved, by the way. Mariah is inserting herself into this situation a little bit and noticing that Avery's calling and Dylan is coming running, and Mariah wants to zero in and know how Sharon feels about that. She wants to grill Dylan about what he's doing, but it's such a twist because it was the same thing when Nick was involved with Avery. It was Sharon calling. Nick and Avery were trying to build a new life, and it was always Sharon who needed rescuing. So for Sharon to not be supportive of Dylan needing to help Avery, I think would be the wrong move, and I'm glad to see that it didn't go that way. So Avery, scared, calls Dylan. Dylan shows up, and also Sharon is able to assist by calling the police on Avery's behalf. Paul's there. They go through the apartment. They go through the outside of the apartment. There are no fingerprints, no footprints. Doesn't look like anybody has been there. And there's a part of me that's wondering, is Avery setting Joe up? Because it's something that Dylan had implied last week, and they just sort of breezed over it. But I wonder if Avery is actually setting Joe up, because we know as the audience that Joe wasn't really at her apartment. He was at the athletic club as all of this was going down. So is it happening in Avery's head? Is it happening intentionally? Is there some sort of outside force? Is someone else becoming a threat to Avery? I mean, she is a lawyer. She's done a lot of work. There could certainly be someone else who has it out for her. But there is a question in my mind: is if Y&R is going to have it turn out that Avery is somehow setting Joe up and maybe trying to get Dylan back in the process. I'm not sure, but something's not quite right. I did appreciate, and I just kind of wanted to end on this note. I don't know what's going on with Avery. I don't know how she's going to leave the show, but I really liked that even though Sharon is insecure a little bit about the fact that Dylan's running off to help Avery, she didn't let that get the best of her. And I thought that was an important choice for the writers to make when it comes to Sharon's character, because Sharon could have easily gotten all up in Avery's face. In fact, she goes to Avery's apartment thinking Dylan's there, and he's not. He's already left. And instead, there's a moment between Avery and Sharon where Sharon could have been vicious toward Avery. She could have said, "Keep your hands off my man." She could have accused her of making the whole thing up. There's a million different ways that Sharon could have been bitchy toward Avery, but she wasn't. Sharon was actually supportive of Avery. In fact, Joe showed up wearing a trench coat, which I think is just a red herring. Joe shows up to have a conversation with Avery, and Sharon says, "You know what? If Avery wants to have a conversation with you, that's fine, but I'm not leaving. You're gonna have that conversation in front of me." And I thought that was really cool of Sharon, and I liked that. And I'm kind of hoping that even as Avery sort of transitions off the canvas, that Sharon and Avery will maybe end up being friends. I mean, I have enjoyed the cat fight, you know, the sort of the back and forth between them over Dylan, but at the same time, I think I like them better as friends. Not every two women on the show have to be enemies. Why does it seem to me that Lauren is the only one who is ashamed of the kiss that happened between her and Cain? Why does it seem like Lauren feels sorry and Cain doesn't? I'm getting a little bit sick of him. And why is it, by the way, that Lauren ends up getting the brunt of this? Lauren realizes what she did was wrong. She had an inappropriate kiss with a married man. It was bad. She didn't mean to hurt anybody. It was like this moment of weakness. I'll forgive her for that. I will forgive her for that. Besides the fact that Michael is torturing her. But she tries to kind of gracefully bow out of her contract with the boutique that she has at the athletic club, and she's telling Devon, "You know what, can I just break that contract? I kind of want to get out of here." And Lily marches up in the middle of their conversation, is like, you want to try to get out of, you want to get out of here? That's too bad, because I was really looking forward to the opportunity to kick your ass out, which I did enjoy a little bit too. But I kind of felt bad I feel bad for everyone in this situation. I feel bad for Lily. I feel bad for Lauren. I don't really feel bad for Cain. I'm extremely mad at Cain. He comes up into the conversation and again, he chastises Lily for letting it be loud. And I understand he didn't want to air his dirty laundry out in public, but it always seems like when Lily questions what's going on between him and Lauren, or when Lily asserts an opinion about something, Cain is always trying to tell her, "Just keep it down, keep it down. I can't talk to you when you're like this." It's so dismissive of her, and I mean, we might as well just accept that relationship is done. I think Y&R tried to break up Cain and Lily after the plane wreck, and I just think it's there. The nails are there in the coffin. The fact that he has no empathy toward her. We've not seen one single scene where Cain is like, "I am so sorry, I will never do it again." I mean, he's apologized, but I don't feel like Cain is asking for forgiveness at the appropriate level that he needs it. Lily has a right to be angry with him. She has a right to want to kick Lauren out. I would too. But Cain's the bigger part of the problem. He stands there and tells everybody, "Oh, it's Michael's fault. All of this, it's Michael's fault. He's the one that set this up from the beginning. He wanted me and Lauren to work together." Well, no, I agree that Michael did nudge you, but Michael did not force this situation. And Lily, I think, hears that Michael was kind of behind it, and she latches onto it immediately. I think Lily wants something else to excuse what had happened. I think Lily would love it if there was some kind of external force that made this happen, as opposed to dealing with the fact that her husband just kissed Lauren because he wanted to. So Lily marches up to Michael. I mean, whoa. She finds Michael at the coffee house, marches right up to him, and slaps him. You can't slap a man with cancer. I mean, I was like, ooh. I could not believe it. It was almost shocking because Michael has been sort of made to be this more delicate character now that he has cancer. And I kind of loved The fact that Lily walked up to him and just said, I don't care how fragile you are. What you did was wrong. Thank goodness she looked amazing in that jumpsuit. I mean, I was like, I don't know what's more shocking, the jumpsuit or the slap. I liked the jumpsuit. I don't know why. I know other people didn't. I guess just because it was different. Sometimes I like seeing people just wear something different. I expected her to kind of scoot out of the scene. You can't touch this, like right after, because it had that baggy MC Hammer vibe about it. It was fabulous. But I did appreciate that Lily really let Michael have it. And she said to him, you know, just because you have cancer doesn't mean that you get to go and toy with people's lives. Don't forget, I had cancer too. And I did kind of forget that. I never would have made that connection because it's been a while, and the Weiner's brought it up here and there, but I never really let that sink into me until that moment. And I love that she brought it up. I've been through what you're going through, and that doesn't give you the right. And I feel like Lily has been one of the only people lately to really shake Michael, refuse to coddle him, call him a coward for what he's doing to Lauren, and encouraged him in a backhanded way to fight. It was great scene. And Michael, at his defense, said, hey, I didn't force them to kiss. And that is true. And that got him a second smack from Lily. I loved it. I mean, Michael, he certainly is not made of glass, and I wonder if in a way he kind of appreciated that someone wasn't treating him like that. Lauren confronts Michael too, by the way, at the end of all of this, and because she didn't know that Michael was sort of doing this behind the scenes. Cain's the only one that's been privileged to that, and she confronts him, and he can't even in this moment when he's been sort of found out, he can't own up to his part of what he's done in the degradation of their relationship. To me, I'm watching Lauren and Michael at this point. I'm trying to get into Michael's head and understand what he's thinking, and I kind of think it's all just one giant test. I don't think he wants Lauren to divorce him, and even though he tossed down the divorce papers again, asked her to sign, she almost signed. I mean, she had pen to paper. I kind of think Michael knows that she won't, or he's maybe expecting her to not sign, and if she did sign, he would be heartbroken. It kind of tells me that this is all just one giant test. Like, how much torture can Lauren take until she just cheats on me, until she completes my worst fear? Now, she didn't sign the divorce papers. She went on with her life, but I don't know what the end of Lily and Cain is going to look like, if it is even going to be the end. Lily is seen later at the bar throwing back Moscow mules with Joe. That's clearly something that's being developing there. Lily and Joe are having a relationship. I don't know how long it's going to be until it ends up in bed. I'm kind of wondering if something nefarious is going to end up happening to Avery, and Lily's going to end up being Joe's alibi. I'm kind of thinking that maybe everyone's going to assume that Joe did whatever happens to Avery, and Lily's going to have to come forth and say, yeah, he couldn't have because we were in bed together. Nikki's out of rehab and back on the scene. I was kind of glad. I was thinking at the beginning of the week, when's Nikki going to come back? So I am glad that she is back. I hope that she's recovered. It was a very short 30 days. I will give you that. It didn't seem like a month that she was in recovery. Maybe she's out a little soon, I don't know. And she's staying at the athletic club, of course, where there's a full bar downstairs and a mini bar in the room. And Neil tries to encourage her, maybe this isn't the best place for you, but she doesn't want to go back home. She doesn't want to go with Victor. Nikki has identified Victor as a major source of her problems and a trigger for her drinking, and she doesn't want to do it. And frankly, I'm not 100% on Nikki's side with this one. I don't think Victor is the end-all be-all of every single one of your problems, Nikki. I think you need to face your part in this whole thing as well, and so does Victor. But, you know, there's this scene where Victor wants her to come home. I'm sure Victor wants her to reassume her place in his life. It's probably more about him at the end of the day than being about her. But they have this confrontation. He asks her to come home. She says no, and he says, why would you not want to? I've treated you like a queen. I've given you everything. And Nikki comes back and says, yeah, you've treated me like a queen that should be seen and not heard, subservient to you only. And Victor says, wait a minute, you subservient? I don't think so. It was a great little series of quips that went back and forth between them. And it made me realize that even though I am a Nikki and Victor fan, and I'd love to just see them work it out, I really would. More than anything else, I just want to see them work it out, be nice and supportive of each other, bond together and work on whatever the problems are, have storylines that have drama without them being storylines about their drama. It's so old. It's so time to be done with that. But the tough thing about it is that I understand both sides of this relationship. I try really hard to empathize with every character, and I understand where Nikki's coming from. I understand where Victor's coming from. They're both stubborn. Neither one of these people are the innocent victims of the other one. Let's make sure we get that clear. So I don't know what's going to happen with them. I did appreciate that Nikki made her rounds. She came back into Genoa City and made her amends to both Paul and Christine separately for what happened in the accident. And it was a very powerful series of scenes. Nikki and Paul have had a really long relationship. They've been friends for a very long time, and that has been deteriorated in like just an instant over that horrible decision that basically Neil was at the center of in the car where Chris lost her child. And I thought it was great that Nikki also talked to Christine about it. It was good that Christine was able to get out her feelings. I was glad that Chris even gave Nikki the time of day. And I liked that Nikki chose her words really carefully and said, I just want to make sure I say what I need to say correctly. I am sorry. I won't ever forgive myself. And Christine listened and she said, you know what? I will forgive you because I need to. For me, I need to be done with this. I can't continue to feel hatred toward you. I can't continue to be sad and scared for the rest of my life. So it was a very healing moment. I appreciated that series of scenes. And I guess the only other thing I kind of want to say on this note, it doesn't really fit anywhere else, but Hilary and Devon are engaged, and I'm kind of looking forward to it. There was just a little bit of a scene this week at the athletic club where Hilary tries to get out of having a big wedding. Speaking of Neil, they both know that Neil is not going to take well to a very public wedding, and Hilary tries to graciously bow out, but Devon's like, no, I love you. I've loved you for a long time. There's nothing wrong about the love. The actions that we did were wrong, but I love you and I want to have a wedding. This would be Devon's first marriage, right? So I think it deserves a celebration. She agrees. I agree. I'm looking forward very, very much to Devon and Hilary's wedding, but I think that Mr. Sobriety, Neil, he's on the wagon now, Mr. Straight and Narrow now, I think that we're gonna see something really dynamic come out of that. I just got a feeling, especially thinking about all of the things Neil has said in the past about revenge and the dark things he wants to do to them. I have a feeling that even though Devon and Hilary's wedding is going to be grand and glorious, I think it's also ushering in whatever Neil's big move is going to be. Just a couple of comments, why don't we? Let's start off with Katie on Facebook, who sent a message that said, Avery is a scared, wounded bird. Phyllis isn't smart enough to figure out that that's not her husband. Michael is acting like a heartless jerk to make Lauren happy. Cain is cheating on the love of his life, and the most stable-headed person on the show in Genoa City is Sharon. What are these writers doing to these characters that we have known and loved for years? It seems like a lot of them have done a complete 180 over a matter of months, to the point where I don't know what to expect from any of them. Am I the only one who's noticed this. Lord, no. Lord, no, Katie. Great, just really well put. I don't think I could say that any better. I keep asking myself, is it me? Am I feeling disconnected from the characters? Or is it the show? Is it the writing? I don't, what's happening with Y&R, because I feel the same way. I not only have trouble recognizing some of the characters that I've known for so long, but I've had some trouble connecting with the storylines and in general connecting with a show that I've been able to connect with for over 20 years now. So I've noticed it too. I think the show needs some help. There's a part of me that, as much as I hate to say it and I don't like to be negative, there's definitely a part of me that kind of is just sort of wishing that this current writing team would usher off into the sunset and maybe we could get some fresh blood in there. I also watch The Bold and the Beautiful, and they have a Bell as in their writing. I think it's Bill Bell Jr. who writes for that show, and it is excellent. I mean, I don't like to talk, I don't want to play favorites or whatever, or even I don't usually talk about The Bold and the Beautiful at all, but that show is good. I mean, it is good. And I thought it used to be hokey. It used to be the hokey one, the kind of throwaway, toss away, half hour, whatever. Don't need to even watch it every day. It's a really well-written show right now. And I wish that Y&R had that. There's a part of me that thinks, gosh, I don't even know if I would I don't know if I would tell someone new to start watching Y&R right now. I think that, the show's always had its hokey elements. It was funny, I was going back when I did my 7-year anniversary Y&R chat week. I had gone back to the beginning of when I started doing the podcast and noticed that the very first podcast I published, I write out which topics I'm talking on, and I noticed right up top I was talking about Sharon and Sky falling into a volcano. I mean, how freaking stupid is that? They fell into a volcano, and it just kind of made me realize, all right, the show has always had hokey elements. It's a soap opera. They've always been there. But there's just I feel like the hokey elements can be disguised or glossed over when you know the characters and you're really digging into who they are and why they are. And that's the part of the show that I really like. It's a 5-day-a-week show. You get to know the people. It's an ongoing thing in our lives. And yeah, I think taking away the characters and who they are and just sort of wiping aside what the character motivations seem to be, it's a mistake. And I was thinking too, Gary had left me a voicemail earlier in the week and had kind of mentioned, I think I talked about last week about a little bit of my Y&R dissatisfaction, and he was commenting too that it seems like some of these storylines, it's like they're bad and there's no way out of being bad, and the writers just keep tossing on new things thinking that that's going to fix it, and it's just not fixing it. We need to get out of the murder storylines. We got to get out of some of these stories that we've been in for too long. It's just getting... It really is getting tedious on some levels, but on other levels it's not. I really actually enjoyed the show a lot this week. Notwithstanding Katie's comment, I agree the character development is not there, but there certainly are some good plot elements that I've been enjoying. Also, Gary had left in a voicemail an interesting point that I thought it'd be fun to hone in on. The relationship between Sharon and Mariah is off, Gary says. It's like Mariah is doing all the work and Sharon is receiving. She's not being motherly, and there was no real amends made to Mariah after Sharon lashed out at her trial. And I thought that's such a good point, because the Sharon and Mariah relationship is something that it's so special and cool that we even get to go there. How often is it that a character is killed off as a child and they bring it back as a twin? There was so much potential for really letting Sharon be an adult mother with a mother with an adult child, and we don't even see that with Noah, honestly, at this point. Sharon is just sort of this thing for guys to fight over and rescue, and I don't think YNR has it all zeroed in on her as a mother. And it is odd that Mariah is looking after her. It again just shows us that Sharon is weak. It portrays Sharon as weak. So her kids are taking care of her. Her man is taking care of her. And I love Sharon. I just want more for her. Connor had left a voicemail for me and had kind of expressed some problem with the character of Adam lately, saying Adam is so forceful. It seems like that's how the actor's portraying it, and it's how Adam, the character, is just forceful. Why would he force himself to be so mean to Billy when he took his daughter? It was Father's Day. Yeah, I mean, I agree, Connor. It was like Adam was really pressing Billy's buttons this week hardcore. There was not even the tiniest little bit of sensitivity, and that's an element that got ripped out of the character with the recast. We know that Adam Newman, as portrayed by Michael Mooney, and having gone through that process with him of having killed Delia, he could not forgive himself. He could not forgive himself so much that he was wanting to sacrifice his life, and then he was gone for a year. They brought him back, and there's none of that there. There's no sensitivity at all. The only thing we've seen that Adam cares about is Chelsea, and to a lesser extent Connor, and we saw some of that this week. But the fact that Adam would allow himself to be apart from Connor at all doesn't feel character consistent. And certainly, I agree that the Adam we knew before would have at least given Billy a freaking break on Father's Day. Vinyl Collectors on YouTube says Cain keeps playing victim, but in truth, he lies to Lily all the time and then asks for forgiveness later. And he wonders why she's quick to distrust him, get mad at him. It's totally unreasonable. I agree. I'm not happy with the character of Cain. Well said. Leanne Day on YouTube says, I agree that Ashley's diagnosis and surgery were a bit too whirlwind. Even in Soapland, it's unbelievable she's out on the town just one day after brain aneurysm surgery. Not that I love drawn out hospital stays, but it's not realistic that she had no part of her head shaved, stitches, bandages, or recovery period. Talk about suspension of disbelief. In other news, Sage spent nearly 2 weeks in the hospital for appendicitis. I love that. That was just so well said, especially the part about having her head shaved and stitches. I never thought about that. I never even thought about that because I immediately dismissed the storyline as, what was it good for? What was it for? There was no follow-up on Ashley's brain surgery this week. I mean, we know she was considering having a will done. Is that will going to play into whatever Marco's takeover plan is? Or, like I said last week, was it purely just a vehicle to bring Ashley and Stitch together? I don't know. What's the point? It was so... Ugh, that's what it was. Although I'll end on a zinger that Anna left me in a voicemail. She says, Ashley looked spectacular this week. I wish I would have looked that good on any day, let alone the day after brain surgery. Ugh, so many really good comments. Thank you, you guys. Please leave me some more comments. I read every single one. I don't do very good at responding. There's so many in so many different places, and I try to just pluck out some for YNR chat and read them. And if you would like to leave me a comment, I may very well choose it and read it and share it with everybody at the end of the next YNR chat. So you can go to yrchat.com. From there, you can leave comments directly on the blog. You can find the video on YouTube, leave a comment on the YouTube video. Lots of people just watch there and comment, and it's fun to go through those and read them too, as I do. So go to YouTube, look through the comments if nothing else. You can also through yrchat.com find the podcast where you can leave reviews on iTunes. Lots of different stuff associated with the podcast. You could call the voicemail. The telephone number is area code 309-5 588-4569. It's just a voicemail. I think you get 3 minutes before the beep, but please feel free to leave as many comments as you would like. I always love listening and reading. You guys totally make my week better. You make my YNR viewing experience better. You guys are getting me through some of these crappy storylines, believe me. All right, that does it for me for this week, you guys. I love you, and I'll see you next time. Happy Father's Day!